and welcome back to the Colour Cave. It's Jem here. I did have a different video planned today, but I really just felt like doing a bit of watercolouring, so I've decided to head back to Ticket to Dreams by Karolina Kubikowska and just have a sort of relaxing painty type session. And one of the things I wanted to achieve is, up until now, the pages that I have done in this book, I've used a lot of pinks and purples, so I was kind of hoping to get away from that today and use a different set of colours for the picture that we're going to do. And I've decided just to come from the beginning, and this was part of our nameplate series, if you remember. So I'm going to colour in this flower, and between Mama Jem and I, we have decided that it might resemble a pansy, so we're sticking with that. This is the last day to get your suggestions in for the cave stash. Once again, as I did in the last video, I will link the relevant video in the end card. If you go and watch that, and you can leave your suggestion underneath that video in the comments section, and after today I will shortlist the most popular ones and we can take a vote on it, and we'll get going with our next cave stash funded video. So I've got a selection of watercolours here today. I have my Winsor & Newton Cotman set, my studio set, which is the big set, and I also have my ever increasing collection of watercolours that are handmade from Julia K Art Studio. Most of you will know by now she is a friend of the channel, and my palette is starting to look quite respectable here. I've also got a few extra paints that was just left over from another project, and I might reconstitute some of these and incorporate them into the picture. I do have this purple streak down here, which is obviously an accident from the nameplate page, and it's just seeped through, or I don't know what I've done there. So we're going to try and kind of camouflage that as much as possible. I think it's probably too dry to try and lift it now. This paper isn't watercolour paper, so the lifting abilities are very, very limited. But yeah, we can see how we get on. So I was kind of thinking a turquoisey colour for some of our petals here, but maybe a more muted background might be quite nice. For those of you that haven't seen me paint in this book before, the paper, although it's not watercolour paper, it does take paint really well. It tends to suck it up quite quickly, so you do have to work quite quickly in order to get, you know, some sort of evenness, if that's what you're after. And the easiest way to do that is just to work in small sections at a time. This is a really good habit to get into, is just keeping scraps of watercolour paper, because it is one of the more expensive types of paper, and you can see I've used them for other things, but they're great for stuff like this where you just want to test things out. So I'm going to start with this. This has actually got a kind of like red tinge to it. Let's get zoomed in a wee bit here. Although it looks like an indigo colour, it's quite a sort of moody grey blue colour. I thought maybe we could utilise some of these greens for our leaves. Got a lighter one here as well. That's more kind of like a yellowish tone to it. And we've got this very delicate yellow here. That's almost primary colours. So we can definitely use these to our advantage here. When I first looked at this, I kind of thought of like poppy colours, but now I'm not so sure, now that someone suggested a pansy. You do get red pansies, but that's just not quite as exciting, is it? So I think we'll start up here, and I think I'm going to go with I've got this number 6 Milan brush. This is one of my favourite brushes just now, and I think I'm just going to stick with that for the time being. And I'm going to pick up this lightest green. There we go, so that's quite a good start. I think I'll do this one down here. I don't know what I'm going to do with this big purple streak we've got going on here, but we'll figure something out, it'll be fine. So this is kind of like I do when I'm colouring. It's just like a base layer of colour just to get started. But see, you do have to work quite quickly if you want flat colour, and don't let the edges dry out. I think we're just going to have to accept that purple streak's going to be there. Now the first thing straight away as well is this yellow that I had. I want to use this for the stamen area in the middle of this pansy. It's just kind of calling out to me, so I'm going to pop that in first and give that plenty of time to dry, because I may want to build up the colour, make it a little bit more vibrant. I'll wait and see how it dries though. So I'm thinking these leaves in here. I'm trying to look at Karolina's sketch lines and decide whether she has an intended light source. And it seems to be coming from the front because there's a lot of shading in here in behind this, so that would suggest that these are casting a shadow on these leaves, so I might have to adjust what I was thinking. And this one at the back's almost black, so I think we'll pick quite a dark green and we can see how we go from there. I do think I would like there to be a difference between these leaves and the ones on this side. I do find painting in this book very relaxing. Pop some of this in here as well. If you do need to stop for any reason, it's good if you can find a sensible place like I did there, you know, a line where you can just leave it and you can come back to it and it's not going to leave you a watermark if you're just looking to get that base coat down like we are here. I might have the stalks a different colour, but if I can just put this down just now, I can do what I was going to do anyway and just build it up. There really isn't any skill involved at this stage. I say it's the equivalent to putting a base layer of pencil down, you know, if you were going to colouring in coloured pencil. You just want to get that coverage in. And the reason that I like to do it is because it helps kind of set in my mind what colours I want to use. And you know, where I want the placement of those colours, and it's just a sort of visual signpost kind of thing. And I know a lot of people that work in sections at a time, you know, they would focus on one leaf and really get it looking absolutely perfect and then move on. But when I was learning to draw, I was taught that you should move around a picture and not stay stuck in one place too long, because you're thinking of it as a composition as a whole rather than just a leaf and another leaf and another leaf that happens to make up a picture. And I think that's maybe why I favour doing it this way. And I don't know if there is a right and a wrong way to do things when it comes to watercolouring. I'm very much still not very experienced in that sense, but I just find it better to do it that way. And it's a habit that's just come from the way that I would draw, or you know, especially if I was doing like a coloured pencil drawing. And I do the same in my colouring pages as well, which again a lot of you will already know. Pop this down here. There is something very satisfying about using watercolour in a colouring book though, and I think it's back to this idea that you can cover a large area quickly, which if you're going to use pencil is just never going to happen. And I know people get the same satisfaction out of colouring with markers as well, because you're covering up that white of the paper really quickly. So the two colours I've decided to use for the actual flower are Hedwig and Ella, which are really nice kind of bluey turquoisey shades, and I think they will complement each other quite well. So because of the aforementioned paper properties, I'm going to work a petal at a time. Now I haven't decided which way round, whether I want the darkest colour on the inside or the outside, so I'm going to try both on just on this scrap of paper here and just see what happens when we try and mix them, you know, thinking about the shape of the petal. In fact, I think what I'll do is I'll just grab a pencil here, and if I draw a rough petal shape, and we're going to have lines coming up like this, and there's going to be a little bit of hatching, and then we'll try another one. Now this is really handy to do this as well if you're wanting to try something like this, and your shapes don't have to be perfect as long as you've got that basic shape. You know, you could do it in a triangle and do the same as I'm about to do, and it'll still give you an idea of what looks good and what doesn't. And again, you can do that with coloured pencil as well. You don't have to be an accomplished artist to do that. So if we were to start here, I say it doesn't have to be particularly exact either, but it's just to give you an idea of what you might be getting yourself in for. So if we had this kind of darker shade here, and then we could blend them out together. Oh, that's quite nice, I quite like that. And we'll try the other way round as well. I think I know what the answer to this is already. Yeah, definitely this one. Definitely this one. Okay, so I do want to get a little bit of this sort of gradient between the two colours. I don't even know if you want to call it a gradient, but that's what I'm going to say. So let's start with one. I'm just deciding here. I think we'll start with this one here. And we'll bring this up to here. And I'm just going to quick dip my brush in and pull this round here, and then we're going to have to start merging this together pretty quickly. That is just lovely. That has made me so happy right now. I am so easily pleased. And I'll just put a tiny smidge of the Ella down. And then with a kind of dry brush, I'm just going to mix these together. That is going to bleed quite heavily because I've put a lot of water down, but that's kind of okay as well. Maybe just pick up a tiny bit of that. That's it, I always keep a rag beside me as well, just for this. Okay, I'm going to try with one of these bigger ones now. This is quite challenging because I say the speed that you've got to go at is pretty quick. Just pull that down a little bit. This colour Ella is so rich. I love it, it's really nice. And it's got a little bit of sparkle in it too, which never hurt anybody. I'm not really a full-on glittery type gal, but I do like a little bit of sparkle. I'm going to treat this part as two separate petals here, just because there's a good point to split it here. Sometimes a little bit of thinking ahead can save you a bit of heartache a wee bit further down, or at least make it less stressful. The other thing I've kind of learned from painting in this book as well is not to be frightened to water down the paint, as I mentioned earlier, just because it takes a lot of layers really well. You know, if you feel something's a little bit too wishy-washy, it's not going to be detrimental to the paper or the overall effect of the picture if you stick a couple of layers down on it. So that's something to bear in mind as well. From what I've gathered though, because a few people have asked me, this book is quite difficult to get a hold of now. I've had this book for quite a long time and I bought it directly from Karolina's website, and I don't know if she's still selling them on her website. I'll leave the link to it in the description anyway if it's something that you're interested in or you fancy checking out her art in general. Because she was selling tote bags and things at one point as well, which were some of the designs that were in her colouring books. And I really like her as an artist, and generally when I pick colouring books it's because I like the artwork rather than it being maybe something that I like to colour. I usually just appreciate the artist's style. I don't know what I'm doing with this bit in behind here. That's like a crinkle in there as well. I don't know what I'm doing with that either. Oh jeez. So the general consensus of this exercise today is that Jem doesn't know what she's doing. Why change the habit of a lifetime? I say it all the time, I am here to have fun. I never proclaim to be any sort of master artist or, serious professional painter. I am here to enjoy myself and take a load off from all of my work and general day-to-day hustle and bustle. So if I don't know entirely what I'm doing, it's not the end of the world really. I'll just maybe flick some of that down in there. It's starting to dry up a bit there. I don't know what I'm going to do with this little bit in here. I'm just going to leave it for now. We can come back to it. It's fine. It'll be okay. Everything will be okay. I think with Karolina's books as well, because she has quite a loose sketching style, if your paintwork is loose as well, if you go over the lines or, everything isn't quite crisp, it's not really a big deal, and sometimes it actually makes the picture look better. And again, I think that's probably one of the reasons why I find painting in her books so relaxing. I just feel like there's no pressure at all to, have perfection or something has to look like a particular flower, because again, a lot of her inspiration is drawn from dreams and fantasy and that kind of thing. So It gives you that little bit more leeway as well if you want to do something a little bit out of the ordinary. And I am a person that tends to favour drawing things and certainly painting things realistically. You know, I like things to be identifiable, and again, I seem to be able to come away from that a bit more when I'm working in her books without fear of retribution or someone simply going, I don't even know what that is, Jem. To be fair, nobody's ever said that to me about my artwork yet in any, you know, in any shape or form, whether it's colouring, drawing, painting or otherwise. So I suppose I must be doing something right. So this might just be a petal in its infancy or something. I can pop a little bit of that in there anyway. As for this is definitely a crinkle. It's got to be a crinkle. It can't be anything else. Now what's happened here is you can barely see my yellow that I've put down, so I'm going to pick a much stronger shade and I'm going to pick it straight off my Cotman palette. And I'm just going to add a little bit of that in, just to really sort of make it a bit richer. So the last thing I'm kind of leaning towards now is this background, and I have a colour here called Alma, which is a really sort of matte flat colour, and it's also quite opaque as well, which is unusual for watercolour. But I think if it's watered down enough it might make quite a nice backdrop for what's going on here. I'll get my wee palette out. Move this off to the side just now and let that dry a little bit. And I'm going to stick just a couple of drops of water. Wow, this palette's dusty. I'm just going to pop a few drops of water in there. There's a dog hair in there as well, that's just delightful. Welcome to the cave. Have some dog hair. And I'm going to lift some of this and just plop it in and see what it looks like in a weak dilution, because again I can build up on top of it, but I would like it quite pale in some places. So let's try, let's have a wee go. Okay, that's like next to nothing. Okay, maybe that's a wee bit too pale. Looks as if I've splodged my tea on my paper by accident. Okay, we need a bit more. Yeah, that's better. Okay, yep, happy with that. So I just want to try and like soften out the edges as I go here. I may have to put a layer of water down on this paper first. I'll use this flat brush and pre-wet the paper and then see what happens. That is a very delicate shade and that's looking okay. So I don't want to go overboard with this here, because I do want to add this colour elsewhere. And once I've done this, I'm going to walk away and I am going to let this dry properly, you know, make sure it's really, really dry before I continue on and start adding some layers and making this picture look a little bit more interesting. I am just picking these spots at random as well. That was the other thing I meant to say. I'm not, you know, these aren't sort of strategically placed blobs of paint. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. Sometimes I do kind of step back and look and think, oh, there's too much of a space there, or that looks as if I've deliberately tried to make them, you know, either similar or random or whatever. It doesn't matter, you know, as if I've tried too hard. So I do kind of take that into consideration, but it's one of these things, and I kind of talked about this when I was doing the video on the doodle art. I think sometimes you can think too much, and it's better just to let it go and see what happens. I've certainly found being able to chill out like that and let go of my orderly and sort of regimented habits is a lot more helpful, and it's certainly a lot more relaxing as well. Right, I'm going to leave this to dry for a wee while now, just as it is, and when we come back we can start building up some layers and really making these colours pop out and make everything look even prettier than it already is. Okie dokie, so we're nice and dry now and we just want to start building up some colours, making this more exciting. So let's have a little look and see what we can find. I have this colour called Spira, which has a really nice gold glimmer to it, but it's green, and I think it's actually more gold than green. We're going to use a little bit of that And I'm going to start on these leaves here. And I think we'll just maybe pop that in some random places like this. I'll zoom in a wee bit. Oh, shuffle everything about a bit so you can see what I'm doing. I popped that in. I just want to maybe blend it out a little bit, but not a huge amount. And we will do the same on this one. And we can go in with some more of the green we were using previously. There we go. So you can see the difference between this one and this one. It is looking a little bit more alive. And I might want to be brave and add a tiny little bit of this darker colour. This was the blue that I'd picked off the palette, you know, this really dark colour here. But if you're using it in a really watered down form, you've got that transparency because that is a, you know, like a traditional watercolour, so it's not going to take over your entire painting, which is what we want. So we'll go back over to these darker leaves now. Now I'm going to stick with the same colour, which was the Vidar, and I'm just going to build up some layers in the areas where I want it darker, and perhaps this side. And I've kind of started it here. Imagine this would be in a little bit of shadow, but maybe not drastically so. And I'm going to really darken down this bit here as well. I'll add a wee squidge of water and just gradually work that out into the rest of this leaf as well. Yeah, this looks much better. You know, you can see the depth between the one that's in front and the one that's behind. That's what we were aiming for there, which is good. So we can put in like the almost neat paint in at this line, you know, where the vein runs down the leaf, and then you can just blend it out from there. And then we'll maybe just put a little bit here, just a tickle. And then we've got this kind of darker spot in here as well. I'm thinking the same sort of situation over here too. Now what I am sort of realising now is that this background is actually too pale, like you can barely see it, so I'm going to have to spend some time building that up as well. I'm going back to my Spira here because I kind of forgot about this little leaf here. I can still really see that, it's really bad. So going back up here to our actual flower, and in these background petals I'm just wanting to build up a bit more of it, and maybe even, if I'm brave enough, take a tiny spot of this Ella, which is the colour we've used up the top, and just pop it in down here and really sort of mash it in and, you know, blend it about a bit. Now I'm going to take the Ella again, and I'm just going to go over what I've done here because I do want this to be quite vibrant and pronounced, especially with these back petals. Yeah, that's better. There's almost a you know, a visible line, and I kind of want that on these back petals. Try and make that dark because it's recessed in there. There we go, and now we're talking. Now we're talking. Again, back to the Ella, and I'm being a bit more selective here about where I'm popping it down. I kind of want to keep this paler spot here as well. I don't want it to be really uniform. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this indigo again that I used earlier. And I just want to pop this in some of these hatched areas. But you can see it's just pulling out those hatched lines again because the paint that we were using, the Hedwig, which is the paler one, it does have that shimmer on it, so it's not as transparent as perhaps some of our more traditional watercolours. And I just want to bring in this shading, you know, sort of bring it back a bit so that we can see that there's depth and that these flowers are overlapping, the petals are overlapping, without taking away too much from the actual colours that we've used. And when I'm doing this, all I'm doing is following the lines that the artist has left. I'm not, you know, there's no science to this, it's just going over what's already there, because they were obviously meant to be darker areas. So, and I'm going to take this as well, and these areas, there's like little spots on these petals, and I'm just going to pop these in as if they're you know, like blemishes or inconsistencies, or I don't know what they are, but I suppose it gives it takes away the uniformity, which most things in nature do have a pattern, but they're not necessarily, you know, that rigid. So okay, let's have a little zoom out now and see how that looks. I think what I want to do now is just build up this colour Alma in the background, and I may even add another colour to it. So it started to dry on the palette, so it's much more concentrated than it was. So I'll just pop this down so you can see how opaque this is now that it's dried out a little bit. I'll just get in there with this water. Yeah, I'm a bit happier with that. That's kind of more what I'm looking for. I don't know if it's frightfully boring watching someone paint over things that have already been painted, especially when it's in the same colour like this. It doesn't really make for a good video, does it? I'm actually not using this number 8. I'm just like kind of holding it, waggling it about, so I'm just going to sit it down again. So I'm just trying to go back and forth here as best I can to stop this drying out completely. There we go. So for a quick afternoon fix, doing some painting and some colouring, projects like this are ideal, and I'm really happy with this. I'm delighted with the way it's turned out, and I had such good fun doing this, and I hope you've enjoyed hanging out for a wee while and just watching or doing your thing and listening. All's cool with me, that is not a problem. But yeah, so I think I'm going to leave that at the way it is just now, and we shall see you back in the cave on Tuesday, had to think about that, for another bonus video in our lockdown period. So keep safe till then, guys, and see you later.